very good morning to you and welcome to Signature Morning. My name is Godwin Sunday. The federal government has exempted 63 key items from the value-added tax VAT as part of its fiscal reforms aimed at boosting economic growth. Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, disclosed this in an official gazette, even to Pressmen. And looking at the generality of the harsh economic policies in the government, alleged harsh policies by the All Progressive Congress administration and other policies being put in place, and this current tax reforms and policy initiated by this administration. We're trying to look at it. How best does this suit Nigerians? Are Nigerians also reacting negatively to these various tax reforms, or is a welcome development to the Nigerian economy? Joining me in the conversation right now is Nick Agule, who is a public affairs analyst, and he will be doing justice to this particular discourse. You're welcome to Signature Morning, Nick.
Thank you so very much, Godwin, and I'm happy to be here, and good morning to our viewers.
All right, let's even get into the conversation. What do you make? Well, initially, when you heard about the VAT reforms and the fiscal policy reformed by the federal government, what came to your mind?
What came to my mind is that it's a good thing, because reform is what we need. Every process as we have it can be bettered. And so when government is taking specific steps to change and make things better and more seamless in whatever sector it is, to add value, to add more value, is a good thing. It should be encouraged. But specifically speaking about the tax reforms, I think that regardless of the reforms that are going to be made, there are basic fundamentals of taxation, which even with the current tax laws, we are not following in Nigeria. And that is, everybody in the country needs to pay their fair share of taxes. And in Nigeria, what you see is the people on the lower ladder in the economy are the ones paying taxes. If you go to the paper market now, people are busy collecting taxes from the women who are selling in that market. So they pay taxes every day. You look at people who are operating Okada, for instance, the motorcycle business, as we call it, taxes and all of that. They are being levied taxes every day. But we are not seeing that same level of taxation from the wealthy of Nigeria. So that's one thing that needs to change. Elsewhere, governments tax the wealthy a lot, and then they use that money to support the poor people. That is number one. Tax bracket needs to expand. Number two, the application of the tax revenues that have been generated. Elsewhere, you can clearly see what tax revenues are doing in the economy. There are visible signs in the education, in the healthcare, in the road infrastructure, in the transportation. In all of those sectors, you can see what taxation is doing. We don't see what taxation is doing in Nigeria, and so that's another problem. So most times we talk about revenues in Nigeria, everybody is talking about oil revenues. When oil revenues dwindle, our economy is said to be crying. But government is actually run by taxation. And if government is run by taxation, it puts the citizens who are taxpayers in the same boat with those who are leading us, because they would like to see what is happening to their money. But because taxation is not the game that government is using now to fund activities, a lot of people think that government money belongs to government. It doesn't belong to them. So fundamentally, as these reforms are happening, the core attributes of a good tax system, even under the current laws that we have that have been missing, is more important. It's one needs to be put on the table and operated as it is.
All right, thank you so much, Nick, for that particular response. We'll take a short break right now. And when we come back, we will still continue and all the conversations. Please stay with us as Signature Morning. This is just starting.
Why do people evade tax? Why is it that the propensity or the tendency to evade tax is very high in Nigeria? It has to do with the social contract, the failure on the part of government, to fulfill its own part. Okay, a situation where individuals or firms provide virtually everything they need that the government ought to have provided. Okay, things like power, for example. If you're a small business, you have to bother about power. You get a generator. Water. You provide your own water. You provide your own security. You at some point you have to also help to do the road to your office and so on. So when you look at all these things, it does not encourage people to voluntarily say they want to pay tax, because on the part of government, they also feel the government is slacking. Government is not meeting its own responsibility. So that is the failure of the social contract, that has been with us.
A very good morning and welcome back to Signature Morning. This morning we are going to be also monitoring situations going on in the PDP Secretariat even. And this morning where we heard that the faction of the party has sacked the national chairman and the secretary and also the legal advisor of the party. And we try to also monitor the situation. Our correspondent who is at the PDP Secretariat here in Abuja will be bringing us up to speed on what's going on in PDP Secretariat this morning. Joining me is Nasiru, who is my colleague and is at PDP Secretariat this morning. Nasiru, good morning.
Good morning, Godwin.
All right, can you quickly bring us up to speed on what's going on in PDP Secretariat this morning?
Okay, earlier this morning, the news broke that a faction of the People's Democratic Party have suspended the national chairman, Umar Damago, and some other party men, and it's kind of frustrating to be in the way situation Nigeria is now. We had the story and we had that there will be a press conference at the national headquarters. So I arrived at the national headquarters a few minutes to 10 and I spoke with the security people that, okay, I came for a press briefing, and they said, okay, I can go inside. But when I entered the compound, I noticed that at the Wadada Plaza, nothing is happening. I was like, what is happening here? So I have to ask some people that are working here. So good morning, good morning, please. There will be a press conference at this one. And to my greatest shock, a lot of them were like, they are not aware of it. They don't know what's happening. So for now, the place is calm and everywhere is cold. There's nothing of such that is happening for now.
All right, Nasiru, while you're still at the PDP Secretariat, have you observed any form of riot, protest, or gathering of any sort of people that are displeased with the faction's decision of suspending Ilya, who is the chairman of the party?
Actually, no, because for now the place is calm and cool. Everybody's just going on in their daily activities. Because I haven't tried to enter the room where if there's any press conference or if there's any kind where the PDP usually use, the place was locked this morning. I tried to get into one of the citizens were like, oh, they've not come. I don't think they're going to come to the port. For now, there's nothing is happening and everywhere was just cool. People are just going on with their daily activities in there. No protest, nothing. For now, the PDP Secretariat is cool and calm.
All right, so no form of security beef up around that area. Looking at this whole protest? Because we're expecting that the PDP chieftain even speak to us in the course of the program. But so far, how is the security situation in that environment?
Oh, okay. Concerning talking about the security environment, the security is calm and good. But I saw a police officer that I think she's working here, so she's just working and she's doing her normal work. But the place is calm and there's no any form of violence or any other thing in the National Secretariat of the PDP.
All right,
so for now, I think everything is good and calm.
All right, Nasiru, in the course of the program, probably if there's any development, you can bring us up to speed with it. But I want to say thank you so much, Nasiru, for joining us in that conversation.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's come back to you, Mr. Nick. This is PDP, and again, Nigerian looking at fiscal policy, and now PDP is going another direction from there. But it is our country. What can we say? But what do you make of this development, even in People's Democratic Party?
So there is a game going on with the PDP, as we have seen since the conduct of the last election. Even before the conduct of the last election, you will hear of the G5. These were PDP governors that had come together under the leadership of then Governor Nyesom Wike, and they were openly protesting against whatever grievances they had with their party, the PDP. And at the end of the day, as we saw during the elections, former Governor Wike, for instance, pitched his tent with the APC presidential candidate, who is now president. Benue State Governor, for instance, pitched his tent with Mr. Peter Obi, who was the Labour Party presidential candidate. And that has continued post-elections, whereby the PDP as a party seems to be on a self-destruct mission. You know, the party has not, the organs of the party are not functioning. They've not had a national executive committee meeting. They've not had elections, because Mr. Damagun, who is there, is in an acting capacity. So by now, since Yochia Ayu, who was the last substantive chairman, was eased out of office, they've not had an election to replace him. And there are fillers in the political space that finger the current FCT minister, Mr. Nyesom Wike, as having a hand in the issues within the PDP. And of course, if I hear former Governor Otom of Benue said he's pitching his tent with President Tinubu for 2027, then it only makes political sense that the weaker the opposition, the better the chances of the APC and their presidential candidate. And that is how you are seeing crisis within the major opposition parties, the PDP and the Labour Party, and even Kwankwaso's NNP.
Yeah.
So it could also be a political game. As if I want to borrow the words of current FCT minister Nyesom Wike, there could be people who are putting fires inside the PDP, inside the Labour Party, and inside the Kwankwaso's NNPP to make it easier for the APC and their presidential candidate 2027. But this is all politics. So now what has happened, and I'm just getting to know that a faction has now taken it upon themselves to dislodge the acting ESCO of the PDP, which is the National Working Committee. Is now going to head back to court, you know, and it heads back to court, and it's in court almost in perpetuity, you know, one adjournment after the other, and all that. And if PDP needs to make a strong showing in the 2027 elections, this is the time they should be rebuilding their party. This is not the time they should be in disarray.
But people have also alleged that the PDP, as it stands right now, enjoys some form of our presence is well known in some within the branches, which is like the state, down through to the cell, like the local government. PDP's presence is well known. And this clashes, this misunderstanding is just at the national body. And you've rightly mentioned that there is a delegation that is a president of Mr. Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister, that is behind this. But let's look at all of this put together. You think that PDP stand a chance right now if its house is not in order, even at the national level? Do they stand a chance of going into any election, substantive election right now, and defeating any political party?
There's no chance if they continue at the current trajectory. With the current trajectory that they are going at, there will be no chance, because, like you have rightly said, the PDP has got a lot of political structures, as they will call it. Because let's not forget, from 1999, when we started the Fourth Republic, to 2015, which was a period of 16 years, the PDP were the party at the center in Nigeria and the party that was controlling the majority of states. So within those 16 years, they built those structures. They have people on the ground. They have foot soldiers on the ground. They have a broad-based support, north, south, east, west, right? Now, that is not the case. Since 2015, when they lost the elections to the APC candidates, President Buhari, in 2019, when President Buhari was doing a second term, again the PDP was in disarray, because that was when some of the PDP, a faction of the PDP. So let's not even forget that even in 2015, the APC emerged from President Tinubu's party, President Buhari's party, then some section of ABGA, but a major bloc that formed the APC were PDP members, including the likes of Governor Rotimi Amechi. You know, they left the PDP, Bukola Saraki and co left the PDP and joined the APC, and that is why the APC became a formidable force that could not be beaten by an incumbent president, Goodluck Jonathan, and he lost out. And the same thing played out in 2019, and in 2023, I believe that the PDP shot themselves in the foot, because here was the PDP with President Buhari just finishing 8 years as a northerner in the villa, and then the PDP allowed Atiku Abubakar from the same north to fly their flag, such that if he was successful, it will be perhaps 12 or 16 unbroken years of a Hausa Fulani from the north being president of Nigeria. And if you look at Nigeria as a geopolitical entity, that was very unequitable. It was unfair. So the best decision the PDP had was to let Mr. Peter Obi, who was the most prominent presidential aspirant in the party, to take the presidential ticket. If he did, a lot of things would have come into play. Number one, power will rotate from the north to the south. Number two, the East have never been president of Nigeria, and Mr. Peter Obi would have been in pole position to do that. So if you look at the result of the presidential election in 2023, the votes that Mr. Peter Obi got and Atiku Abubakar got were both PDP votes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They divided votes.
They divided their votes. So, and remember that Peter Obi won 8 states, and Mr. Abubakar won 8 states. That's 16 states. And the current governor won 8 states. You know, making it 34 states. And then there were 2 states that were won by Labour Party. The NNPP party. You see what I'm saying? So that was a political suicide that the PDP committed in 2023, and they better get their act together, otherwise 2027 is already slipping through their fingers.
All right, so we are being joined right now by Ibrahim Abdullahi, who is a Deputy Public Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. Good morning, Mr. Ibrahim.
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm very well. All right. So bring us up to speed. First, we understand there is a factional opposition decision to suspend the acting president in the person of Ilia Damagu of the party. But let's hear from you. What's the update on the party? What's going on in PDP?
Yeah, there's no faction, first of all, in the PDP. That must be corrected. The NWC sat yesterday in its 593rd session and then took a decision to suspend the National Publicity Secretary and the National Legal Advisor of the party. And the committee is put in place to review the allegations that were leveled against them with regards to disloyalty and insubordination. And then within 2 weeks, the report back to the House for proper decision to be taken against the duo. And just when that is done, in compliance with the relevant provisions of our law, in the middle of the night, the suspended National Publicity Secretary came up with a press release purportedly suspending the national chairman. I don't know, and by the way, the fellow is not even in the country as we speak. There was no meeting anywhere. I don't know if he himself has constituted a council with the required number and quorum to be able to take even decision on behalf of the party. There's no local standing. He's just grandstanding. He's just not. He's just being a typical Nigerian and an African who will want to shave a person's head in their absence. So, really speaking, it's not something that requires even the attention of the media, because the media is guided by the extant provisions of our law. If the media will want to listen to a person who has been suspended, I don't know, is it from suspension? Because by law, the moment you are said to be suspended from a properly constituted committee, then your powers to act on behalf of that organization cease to be. So I wonder at what capacity was he suspending someone who presided over a committee that suspended him earlier? So it's just the kind of executive rascality that we have in this country. Instead of going squarely to face, and for a person that is a senior lawyer, one would have expected him to be guided, not to go doing this thing, because it's a further damage to his reputation and it violates the ethics of his professional conduct as a lawyer.
All right, Mr. Ibrahim, but Debo has come out, PDP have said that he was not loyal to the party, and that's one of the things that led to his suspension. But bring us up to speed. How correct is that assertion that he's not loyal to the party?
No, he has not shown loyalty lately. Just when we are contending, and of course you, the media, have descended heavily, on PDP to get things right in the party. And this is what has engrossed our attention. This is what we've been doing lately to ensure that all of those issues that were raised with regards to anti-party activities against certain individuals, some of them highly placed, a committee. In fact, 2 committees have been put in place recently to look into all of these issues, to review them. And that seemed to have doused the tension to a reasonable extent. And then we're contending, coming out of a successful Congress, at least 90% successful across the 36 states of the Federation, barring River State, which is still in contention. And that is one of the issues that Debo, had to show disloyalty, because the party had taken a position not to partake in the Rivers local government election. But Debo went against the decision of the party, which was taken in his presence. He was in attendance, to issue a statement that the PDP would take part in that election, and he was encouraging them to come all out. But you could see if that is anything to go by, then it has constituted disloyalty and insubordination. That's just one of the many. I will be coming to address the press in a few minutes, and some of the details will be made known, and of course that will guide our discourse forward.
All right, just before we let you go, before you address the press, we are curious this morning, in this situation where it has been the other faction as it stands right now although you said it doesn't hold water because he is under suspension, but he has come out to say that the chairman, the acting chairman has been suspended. That's the person of Iliad Demago has been suspended and it has been subjected to disciplinary measures. And you are saying that it's not possible. As it stands right now, we are asking what holds water for the PDP right now? What should we take?
What you should take is as simple as what you can imagine, and the answer is ABC. It's as simple. Somebody saying he suspended someone. First of all, he's lacking in the powers, capacity, and legal backing to do so. Secondly, he's not even in the country as we speak. And then suspension will be guided by rules of engagement and the principles of equity and fairness. You cannot, because you are said to be suspended, then you turn around and say you are suspending the person who suspended you. It wasn't Damagu who took the decision to suspend him, but it was the council. And he was not the only one suspended. There was this legal advisor, national legal advisor, who was equally suspended, and he was in attendance in the meeting. And so he took his own in good faith, and therefore who is not even in the shores of the country. So where did you hold your meeting? Who were the ones? Where are the quorum? Who voted? What are the minutes of the meeting? Suspending the national chairman and the national secretary. So for you to even give that attention is just a waste of time. The media is expected to know that that is not the line to toe, except because they want to put flame where there's no fire. That's not even, it's a waste of time. It doesn't represent anything.
Mr. Ibrahim Abdullahi, that's why we are calling you to get clarification on some of these things, because we need to put the balance out there for Nigerians to be able to make informed decisions on this matter. All right, I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim Abdullahi, for that clarification. And Mr. Ibrahim Abdullahi is the Deputy Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, and you've heard it from him. Want to appreciate him so much. All right, so let's even come back to look at and let's come back on the fiscal policy of Nigeria again. There are a lot of policy that the suspension of the VAT and all the items that have been suspended, but this is an economy that is trying to revitalize itself and come back to normalcy. But then suspension of items, won't this further throw the economy into a state of comatose?
Well, I think the suspension of VAT, for instance, on food items, pharmaceuticals and all of that is what happens in almost every other economy. There are some basic essentials that you want to deal with inflation, and so you don't want to make them unaffordable to the vast majority of the people, because VAT adds to the price of these products. So if you take off the VAT, it's expected that it becomes more affordable. And so if looking at the economic situation now and the changes that have happened since this government came into office about 16 months or so ago, you discover that the disposable income of households has been greatly impacted negatively. Whether you want to talk about fuel subsidy removal, you want to talk about unification of exchange rate, you want to talk about hiking electricity tariffs, you want to talk about what's the other policy? We talked about unification, hiking electricity tariff, then hiking interest rates. All these things go to increase prices, so they're inflationary. So government taking steps to cushion the effect and all of that is fine. And like I said, it's not, government can make up the revenue, which is the point you have made, that if you suspend some tax items, you are no longer going to be able to make the revenue to further government work. You can make a lot more money if you look at other areas. Number one, look at how the rich of Nigeria can pay their fair share of taxes. You can make a lot more money than you are losing from the suspension. If you look at how to stop crude oil theft, you can make a lot more money than the suspension.
But Mr. Nick, looking at all of this, indices, the country needs money as it stands right now. The federal government is in dying need. Nigeria is almost going out to borrow from World Bank as it stands right now, which means that the government needs enough funds on the ground. And here we are talking about the suspension of certain items from from the VAT list. It's a bit confusing right now. We are asking, are there no, or is the timing for this suspension right? Or the government should probably look for other time? Because Nigerians are already ready to toe this line of let the VAT go. Let the VAT be there. We're ready to cope. So looking at the timing of this suspension, would this further be an excuse by the Nigerian government not to meet up setting off its manifesto, electoral manifesto as it stands right now? Wouldn't this further make the government to deviate from what he had promised us earlier on?
No, it shouldn't. Because if you look at politics elsewhere, like if you look at the UK, you had the Conservative Party, you had the Labour Party. If you look at the US, you have the Republican Party, you have the Democratic Party. Now the Democrats in the US, their equivalent in the UK is Labour. And then the Conservatives in the UK, their equivalent in the US is the Republican Party. What is their ideology? The ideology of the Labour Party or the Democrats is to tax people, bring the money in a pool, right, and then use it for social welfare programs. While the ideology of the Conservative Party is to cut taxes, yeah, cut taxes so that people can have disposable income and take their financial decisions. Now, when you talk about cut taxes, you will hear them say, if we cut this tax, we are going to make up the government revenue from this process. And that's what you mean by balancing the books. Do you understand? So cutting tax is never a problem. In fact, if you look at an economy like Nigeria, which is a small economy that needs output growth, you want people to have money to be able to buy so that manufacturers and producers of goods and services will be happy to increase output. You know, so this is why I said, if as the government has already committed to cutting taxes in Nigeria, there are many other areas they can make up the money. Look at how much crude oil that we have produced that is being stolen, you know. But more importantly, I want to also draw attention to reforms. Do you understand? Like you said, government will, if government experiences lower revenue, how can they execute their programs? The Nigerian government needs to embark on reforms. In this age, governments are not the ones that are running businesses. All right, governments step back from businesses, create the enabling environment for the business world to come in and bring their money and invest, while government is responsible for regulation and taxation and all of that. And I can give you a very good example. You look at this phone I'm holding. This phone used to be provided by government budget through a company called NITEL. And because it was being provided by government budget, the budget wasn't big enough. Even the budget was not being managed properly. We didn't have phones. The whole of Nigeria was having 500,000 active lines. They were grossly inadequate, and so the phone was expensive. There was racketeering with the phones. The phone became a status symbol, and yet people didn't have it. Reforms happened during the Obasanjo regime, and what happened? Government stepped back from telecommunication and allowed the MTNs, the Airtels, the Etisalat, and the Glos to come in. What did they do? They have so far put in over $100 billion of their money to develop the infrastructure. And today, Nigeria is being offered 220 million active lines.
Mr. Nick,
yeah.
Let me even pause you at that, but
yeah.
We'll come back to this conversation. I've been joined right now, and today is on the International Day for the Girl Child, and we are also trying not to be sentimental. We're trying to bring in the girls and talk about gender issues also even this morning. And I'm being joined by Adewale Yetunde, who is joining me from Ibadan. Adewale Yetunde is the chairman board of trustees and program manager of Friends Friend Hope Horizon Foundation, and is joining us from your state, Ibadan. You're welcome to Signature Morning, Adewale Yetunde. Yetunde, if you can hear me, good morning. You're welcome to Signature Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. So let's even talk about the girl child this morning. But tell us, what is the pressing issues of the Nigerian girl child before we talk about the future of the Nigerian girl child? What's the International Day for the Girl Child all about? What are the issues confronting the girl child before we talk about the future of the girl child?
Is program
Adewale,
for all
can you
girls.
hear me, Yetunde?
Yeah,
All right, Yetunde, so we're trying to find out from you where we are, where we're going to as a country in terms of the girl child. What are the most pressing issues confronting the Nigerian girls child, and what is the theme of this year's International Girls Child Day all about? And how does this correlate with the Nigerian girls child?
the theme of the Nigeria Girls for 2024 is a girls' future. A society where a girl, is born, where no barrier. It, it, it's girls' dream. But for now, proving they are now being called to go policies in IRP.
All right, okay, and yet today we're struggling to get to you this morning, and while we're trying to sort out that network challenge, so probably we'll pick you back again. But then let's even talk about this. You were talking about the NITEL,
Yeah.
and suspension of NITEL,
Yes.
in order to bring in other private stakeholders,
Yes.
into the Nigerian economy, which has further expanded the economy.
Yes.
But then again, when NITEL was introduced, were pulled back to the backstage by playing supervisory role to other telecommunication company, just like what NCC is currently doing, we saw that no form of VAT was introduced to the system. Rather, the federal government played a key role by exempting itself from the business ground. But then, right now, we're looking at the federal government, they're not playing the role of the big brother here. The federal government is coming and saying, hey, not the role of the big brother, we're taking out VAT from these particular items. People begin to ask salient questions like, what would then happen to other items that VAT are not being removed from? Won't this further cause more commotion in the Nigerian economy? That's on one hand. On the second hand, the withdrawal of the Nigerian government from all of these VAT policies, should we be talking about Nigerian government pulling out completely, or should we be talking about Nigerian government privatizing the tax sector as it stands right now also?
Okay, so if I go back to the example I was giving
All right.
about the telecoms, you can look at the scale of what has happened after the reforms. $100 billion of what these telecoms companies have put in. For the benefit of our viewers, let's put it in scale. Nigeria's current budget, for instance, now is about $20 billion or less, federal government's budget. And these telecoms companies, in the 25 years they've been here, they've put in 5 times that. And you can tell the result. The result is that almost every Nigerian now has got one phone or the other. And the economic activities that is generating far outweighs whatever VAT you would have got. Yeah, you understand what I mean? Because even if you look at job creation, apart from the telecoms companies creating jobs directly for their employees who are working with them, you know, people who are even doing recharge business, they are gainfully employed because they are doing the recharge because the phone is there. Plus the suppliers of their materials, the technicians, and the whole workforce, and the fact that we can make calls now, which is what we weren't able to do before. And this reform that happened in telecoms, there are other sectors in Nigeria that are begging to have the same type of reforms. Number one, the power sector. When you mention the power sector, there are people who will say, oh, but the power sector was privatized. But if you look at the privatization of the power sector, it is diametrically opposed to the privatization of telecoms. Because in telecoms, we know the MTN and Co, they were already operators in the sector. In the power sector, who were the operators that were given licenses? None. Look at the 11 discos. Not one of them was operating in the power sector. So they don't have the money, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the capacity to do it. So if government brings reforms in the power sector, look, electricity is more important to this economy than even the telephone. Yeah? If you have electricity, this economy will grow such that the money you are making from VAT now, let's say you have VAT 7.5%. 7.5% of 1 million is 75,000, right? The same 7.5% on 1 billion is 750,000. On 10 billion is 7.5 million. So you can see that the bigger the economy, the more tax revenue, even if the rate is the same or the rate is halved. Even if you reduce VAT to 1% and you apply it on a 1 trillion naira economy, you will make a lot more money than you are currently making now with a small economy. So to me, the government should actually be looking at the big ticket items. You cannot have an economy like Nigeria being supplied with 3,000 megawatts of electricity, when South Africa, that is like 65 million people, is receiving 55,000. Brazil, that is the same population with us, on 150,000 megawatts. Just compare 150,000 megawatts and 3,000 megawatts. Do you understand? So those are the kind of areas that government should be focused, because those are the areas that are going to grow the economy, all right? And
but do we have what it takes right now to even talk about transitioning into a more diversified economy as it stands? Do we have what it takes?
So there are structural imbalances in the economy that need to be uprooted. Do you understand? All the areas where government is sitting on the economy, government needs to move away. Like we're talking about the NNPC, which is a government company. So either the NNPC moves away, just like NITE moved away. And by the way, just to say that, when MTN and Co were issued licenses, NITE was not shifted to the back. It was allowed to compete with the MTN and Co.
With MTL?
Yeah, with the MTL
didn't survive. MTL didn't survive 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. But they couldn't survive because they are running on government bureaucracy. A government bureaucracy is different from a business bureaucracy, right? Businesses are set up to provide goods and services at the cheapest rate possible in a competitive environment for profit making. Government bureaucracy is how much can I make from this enterprise, So there are other sectors that government can face. The Nigerian Railway Corporation should be set aside so that private sector can come in for rail, private sector can come in for power, private sector can come in for steel, the steel industry, private sector can come in for agriculture, for water, for roads, for everything. As we speak today, and I tell people, one of the best roads in Nigeria, as we speak today, a road that if you're on it, you think you are abroad, is Kefi to Makudi Road. And what happened? Government stepped aside, the Ministry of Works stepped aside and allowed the Chinese to come in with their money and lay the road. And then they now install tolls. And for me, I'm happier to pay a toll, maybe 200, 300 or 500, 1,000, and drive on a clean road than to drive on the death trap that was there before, and the cost of maintaining the vehicles.
Let's even look at the marginalization that this fiscal reforms, in terms of the suspension of items, is going to cost. It's going to further expand the gap between the rich and the poor, because a lot of people, as whispers are everywhere, that this reform will further expand the tax gap between the rich and the poor, in the sense that most of the items, the 69 items that the federal government is removing VAT from, are items that tends to favor a particular class of people in Nigeria. But then, do you think at this point that this is a form of marginalization by the government at all?
I wouldn't say it's a form of marginalization, because this is now items constitute some of the basic things that we use, like food, pharmaceuticals, books and things like that, educational materials and all of that. Whereas the VAT on luxury items is not being removed, and it is the luxury items that the rich are going for. So they are the ones buying the aircrafts, they are the ones buying the G-Wagons, they are the ones. So ideally, what government needs to do, and which is what governments do elsewhere, is as they removed VAT from the basic things that the poorest in our economy consume, right? They could have increased the VAT on luxury items. So that if you bring an aircraft, instead of 7.5%, you pay 10%.
Because that's what I was looking at. Because who pays the remaining, the balance for
exactly,
all items that have been...
They could have, the luxury items, they could have made it such that the rich are the ones who pay for it, you know. And if the rich are paying for it, that means they are paying their fair share of taxes. It will more than make up for the loss in revenue from the removal of VAT on some of these basic items.
All right, Mr. Nick, let's see. Yetunde, are you still there with us this morning? All right, so we're trying to also try to pick since today is International Day for the Girl Child, we're trying to see if we can talk to Yetunde, who was been with us for some time now, and I think we are unable to get Yetunde right now. So let's even talk about this issue that surrounds the government and prevention of the government have not come out again. There's this thing that has become like a recurring thing in Nigeria, and that is the issue of tax evasion. Now, people evade tax without any form of caution. Now, the government has not come out to tell us how they have been addressing the issue of tax evasion and other modalities. But then we're looking at the government now coming out to tell us about the VAT on suspension of items. Do you think that this is a misplaced priority by the government?
So let me make it very clear, because I've had the privilege of living in Nigeria, paying taxes here, and living abroad and paying taxes there. I can assure you that in every country of the world, without an exception, if the people can evade tax, they will evade it. Britons will evade tax if they have a way. Americans will evade tax. Germans will, French, Singaporean, everybody on earth who would like to pay tax, they will evade tax. The reason why they are not evading taxes is because the governments in those places have put systems in place to make it very hard to evade the taxes. That's what happens. So tax assessment and collection is a duty of government. You know, if government goes about with that duty, especially using technology as we have it in our modern day, then there's no way that people will evade taxes. Like in Nigeria here, you discover if you go to America, they have what they call social security number. If you go to the UK, they have what they call national insurance number. This is a number that identifies every single individual in that country, and everybody is got it. If you don't have it, then that means you are anonymous, and they will not let you to be anonymous because you could be a terrorist. They don't want to know. You understand? So their eyes are on you. So your national insurance number or social security number is following you wherever your economic activities are going. Whether you have a job and you are being paid a salary, or you are doing business, or you are doing both, or you are self-employed, whatever, the government has got data on you. And if you evade tax, the consequences are there. One of the biggest offenses you can commit in those crimes is for you not to pay your tax. And people know it. And that is why they are going to pay tax. But on the other hand, the people are also seeing what the tax revenues are being applied to. Like go to the UK, as rich as that economy is the government that is paying all school fees of children up to high school, age 18. It's government that is paying all medical bills for everybody. All
right. Mr. Nick Agule, I want to say thank you so much for coming on Signature Morning today. There are a lot of things we can also talk about even on this tax reform, but I'm being signaled that our time is fast spent right now. So before we even leave right now, we'll leave you in the hand of the Vox Pop Bar. It's talking about Abuja residents speaking on the price of fuel this morning. But this is the size of the show. I want to thank Yetunde Adewale for finding time to join us this morning, and we also want to thank Mr. Nick Aguli for finding out time to be with us this morning. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.